Hello, I am William Avery, and I am presenting the affirmative of corporate boards do not effectively represent shareholder interests. First, to discuss the role of the corporate board, the board of directors is elected by the shareholders, and they are directly responsible for protecting and managing the interest of the shareholder. So that is their number one and only job, is to protect the interest of the shareholder. However, they have many conflicts that can come into play that prevent them or incentivize them not to protect those interests of the shareholder. One of those is the makeup of the board of directors. If it is made up of management of the corporation, you can clearly see how that would be a potential conflict of interest, that the decisions of the management team could be not in line with those of the shareholders, and the board of directors should be there to help mitigate any impacts, any negative impacts for the company on the shareholders. And if that is the same set of people, the board of directors and the management are the same group of people, then that is obviously a conflict of interest. Another conflict that can occur is whenever when the board of directors, even though they may be independent of the corporation and not part of management, are too closely linked to management and to the CEO or the upper levels of the corporation. An example of that is the many examples that we see where CEO pay is not linked to performance of the company. It is set in advance at very high levels, and there is no incentive for the CEO to perform in one direction or another because his pay is far greater than you would anticipate for the performance of the company. So when the company is underperforming, he is not incentivized to improve that because his pay is already set at a higher level than many people believe it should be. Another key item to discuss is what is really the best interest of the shareholder. What is the definition of that? Is it strictly the stock price? Today, corporations have large groups of institutional investors who are trading stocks on speculation of ups and downs in the market and not a traditional stockholder or shareholder as you may traditionally think of it. So is the best interest simply the stock price, or is it in the long-term survival and profitability of the company over a set time period versus short-term profits? So you can have very different definitions of the best interest of the shareholders based upon the shareholder group, which can be very different throughout a company's makeup. So if you're talking about the long-term performance of the company, there may be decisions on investing in training and equipment that may impact a short-term performance that will negatively impact the stock price. And in that case, the board is not acting in the best interest of the shareholders in the short term, but they are in the long term. So there are many instances where the board will not act in the best interest. Now, in my opinion, that is the best interest of the shareholder as a long-term investor, but not as a shareholder as the short term, because everything is driven today by the stock price. So the shareholders are not properly represented by that approach. In today's market, with the institutional investors as the majority shareholders in many companies and the mutual funds that also take up the most of the investment in the corporations, that the stock price is the focus and that should be better concentrated upon by the board of directors, which is clearly not the case in some companies where, as we mentioned, the CEO compensation is not driven on that, and a lot of the decisions are made very short-sightedly that do not allow for the growth that would increase that stock price over time.